We got 1 minute to go. We'll start sharp. By the time the attendees will also probably settle down. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm for this session because it's like 60 attendees are there before the time came for the session to start.
Okay. Okay.
Really
That's nice.
appreciate people who have been actually in the waiting. And
that's nice. Nice. Good to hear.
because of all of you are looking at having this interesting conversation. So let me kick off. We have around 65, 66 attendees now, and more are joining in. So Colin, Sribesh, and Upasna, thank you very much for joining me for this very, very interesting topic for conversation today. And for the benefit of the audience who would have already seen the creative probably, the topic for today's conversation is organizational enablers for sustainable work. And it's my honor and privilege to be the moderator for this session. My name is Rishi Kapil. I'm an academician and a former corporate professional. This is one session which focuses as much as on an individual and sustainable work, as much on what should happen in an organization to increase the longevity of careers. For the benefit of our audience, one thing which I must clarify is that sustainable and sustainability, how these words have been created, sometimes become very, very interchangeable. We are looking at sustainable work, whereas sustainability, when you look at the sustainability development goals, when you look at things happening to the planet, the environment, is a different universe altogether. So the conversation that we are having today is that while as an individual, if I am a working professional, it is maybe expected from me to do the right things to have a longevity of my career or keep on sustaining my work year over year. But where do the organizational enablers play a role in that? So is it just that I'm a sole survivor or a solitary reaper who has to keep on upskilling, reskilling, unburning, reburning, and keep on increasing the time of my career? Or are there organizational enablers, organizational strategies, organizational policies which have to work hand in hand for this sustainable work to keep on improving and increasing? So that is basically the premise of the conversation. And as the HR practitioners are there on this call, we all know that acquisition of a talent is extremely costly as compared to growing the talent in the organization and increasing their longevity. So extending careers is as much as an organization's responsibility as much as it is the responsibility of the individual. So with all these esteemed panelists whom I will introduce briefly, we are here to discuss, deliberate, understand, in fact critique, as well as evaluate what are those organizational policies that will lead to sustainable work for people not just in active careers, but there is a situation which might have happened because of COVID where voluntarily or involuntarily people had to take career breaks. So how do organizational policies create a level playing field for that particular place as such? So these are the conversations that we will be having today, and an extremely interesting one. So let me start by introducing our esteemed panelists, and I'll try to do justice to it, but please feel free to mention about something if I might miss it. Thank you very much for joining. So let me start with Colin Mendes. Colin, thank you very much for agreeing to be a part of this conversation today. Colin is the head of human resources for Voltas Beko Private Limited, and by the way, I'm a customer to the organization. And prior to this, he has led human resources for domestic project groups at Voltas, and he's been responsible for the whole 9 yards: HR, capability building, compliance management, health, safety, security, environment, something which is very, very important and critical in the human capital functions. And prior to this assignment, Colin has worked at group levels as well as across varied industries, which are telecom, IT-enabled services, FMCG, pharmaceuticals, and he's covered all the facets of HR in operational as well as strategic level. So he's one go-to guy, not just for what the strategy beholds, but also what happens at an operational level. So he has held senior level positions with the group HR at Tata Sons, Tata Tele Services, WNS Global, Bharti Airtel, Unilever, and Pfizer, with exposure in people and change management. And change management is something which we think about a lot, and Colin has already practiced change management during mergers and acquisitions, and his expertise has been regularly sought at conferences, at knowledge centers, including NHRDN, a popularly known consortium, CII, SHRM, People Matters, World HRD Congress, symposiums at IRD Delhi, and other management institutions. So, Colin, thank you very much for being here. This is an extremely well-rounded, illustrious profile, and I'm sure beyond this session, we all will have a lot of engagement interactions to look forward to with you. Thank you for being here with us. And let me welcome
Thank you.
Shrivesh Biltharia.
Thanks, Rishi. Thanks for the kind introduction. Yeah,
Thank you so
happy to
much.
be here.
Our pleasure. Let me introduce Shrivesh Biltharia to all of us, who's the head of HR at Shyam Steels Industries. And he has worked in manufacturing, construction, banking. So look at the diversity of the panel: IT-enabled services, telecom, conglomerates. Then moving, Shrivesh into coming from manufacturing, construction, banking industries, and his roles have involved HR policy, talent management, employee engagement, and recruiting. And he has also worked with organizations like Hindustan Construction Company, Adhonik Group, and Rashmi Group. And Shrivesh has extensive experience in designing and implementing HR processes, and to that effect, we have some very interesting conversation lined up for both Colin and Shrivesh in that sense. And the processes which Shrivesh has always pioneered are aligned to facilitating long-term business strategy. So uniquely, well, people believe HR and business strategy may be two different ends of the same organization, but here it is an evidence that no, strategy of businesses and HR are so well and tightly integrated. So as an HR professional, he focuses on driving organizational specific intervention so that it can deal with market changes. And no better evidence on what happened to us in the pandemic, where the market changed and the challenges came into change management, culture building, and integration. Shrivesh, thank you very much for being with us, and look forward to a very, very engaging and exciting conversation with you. Pleasure. And Upasna, the Director of Human Resources at GI Group India, representing the organization who's facilitated this conversation for all of us. And having joined in 2003, she has played a very, very unique and instrumental role in scaling up the HR department in the organization, with the business growing over the last 2 decades. And right from having an eye to shortlist the right talent to be able to maintain the equilibrium of the quality of talent in the organization, and again, looking at the business aspects on supporting the costs of a sustainable business model. While this organization is new, it is growing and growing leaps and bounds. And she's been addressing the challenges of diversity and the diverse workforce as well, which makes GI Group a preferred choice of talent. And I mean, you are already a UGC NET qualified professional, Upasana, and you did your education from Isabella Thurston College in London and earned your master's degree from Lucknow University. It's indeed a pleasure to have you here, and I'm an aspirant of NET. So while I'm on my PhD journey, I still believe people tell me you still have a gap if you're not NET qualified. So maybe something to learn on that aspect as well. So thank you very much for joining us, Upasana. And
Thanks, Rishi.
and with the 120, 125 odd participants, let's make it very, very proactive, interactive, and experiences oriented. And without much ado, let me first again reinstating for the benefit of all of us, we are looking at sustainable work. So don't find anecdotes and keywords to say where is sustainability, because it won't come. We are looking at evangelizing longer careers, and that's probably the direction we are willing to take. So, Colin, this might appear like a cliche, very, very transactional, but we've been hearing it for 2 decades now. And the topic is Decoding India's Skill Gap. So, VBox launched a report in 2022, which said that only 1 out of 2 youth in India are skilled enough to be employable. So, the employability percentage in the youth of India is around 48.7%. They have nailed it to that last decimal. Now, since the time people exit from their colleges, been 2-3 decades, the problem is known, skill gap exists. So what more should be done, because strategies of implementation or strategies of addressing this challenge, where are they headed, and why is it that this conversation comes up time over time, year over year, and what is it that we are missing? Colin, your insights will be very helpful, and Shrivesh and Upasana, please do feel free to pitch in should you have anything to put across once Colin has given his view. Over to you, Colin.
Thank you, Rishi, and thanks for this question. And let me reiterate a point. When you said 48.7%, did I hear that right? You know, yeah, and I think we will all agree, and it's really disheartening to note the state of employability of today's youth in India. And when you mentioned this for a moment, it took me back to really realize that we have a long way to go, and we have miles to go before we sleep, really. You know? And today, when we're talking about all what is happening, each of us significantly impacted by this, by the skill gap that really exists. So why is this really happening? And I'm just thinking, when you put this, when you were talking about, when you give me these insights from the India skills report from Wheelbox, and I'm trying to understand what could be some of the key reasons why it's happening. We all know that this exists, and this point, as you rightly said, keeps coming up time and again. Yeah. And what are we going to discuss? How do we decode this matter? How do we bring an end to this? Or how can we really up this bar and ensure more employability for today's youth? Because today India is a country that generates so many number of engineering graduates, management graduates, across and so if they are not employable, something is going wrong somewhere. And so therefore the most important thing that came to my mind uh, while you were just speaking about it, the one important thing is our education mechanism. And at the risk of taking and bringing this topic up again, but I think it's important to highlight this topic is what really has transpired in the past. And today, India Inc. I'm of the view needs far more robust education initiatives that are really aligned to the industry. Yeah, so because the industry has been rapidly changing over the past years, but is our education system really tuned to what's happening? Yeah. And so therefore the point that comes to me, I think there needs to be stronger industry academia collaboration, in the form of, for example, student internships or live projects. And let me give you a point that I was reading a report some time back, where only 40% of total graduates, yeah, engineering graduates, because we take in a lot of engineers, but really 40% of them really opt for internships, for hand-on experience. So, a large chunk of people are really not even doing that. The other most interesting thing to note is, Rishi, almost 36, around 36% odd people take up projects that are other than their course of work. Okay. So really, what exactly are they doing? Where, are they really passing their time? How serious is this internship? And so therefore, not tuned to industry, and therefore that big wide gap. And so that's the first thing that comes to mind. Hey, there's a big problem happening here, and we really need to fix that. The second thing is that came to my mind, is in terms of faculty internships. Yeah, we all talk about student internships, and everyone feels that the student needs to learn. But it's also important to that. It's also important to consider a faculty internship so that they really can bring to light real life case studies that industries are facing today, and fine tune them better for a stronger tomorrow. And I think that's very important. And these things, I think if we are able to size and do it really well, and it's important that both industry and academia come together and seal this and cement this, that will go in a long way of going forward. Beyond that, I think this is dealing with a section of people that are actually the people who are joining the workforce. What happens to laterals and people who have been there, done that, and they feel that they know everything, but there's still a gap even there. Yeah. How do we bridge this gap today? There's a strong need for bringing introducing, sending people for short-term executive education programs, and today a number of institutions have that, and I'm happy to hear that. But I think this will help really bridge those gaps, or get people back to academics, learn some things, tools, brush up on some tools and techniques, and then come back to work. Yeah. And that will help them not only work better but advance their career, that will help them. And today there are flexible formats that are helping this to be done better. There are online formats, there are flexible schedules, and I'm not getting into the argument of how effective online is. That's a separate topic. But the most important topic, and if I look at it the other way, from a flip side, that online has helped and facilitated people from far distance to break the gaps, break the barriers, break the geography, and actually go there and do that. So that, I think, to my mind, as will make a significant change in terms of imparting stronger executive education for all your lateral bunch of people. Yeah. The second, if we all look back what's taken place in the last 2 years, yeah, there's been a rapid depletion of skills on account of accelerated digitization. And we will all agree, because most of us never anticipated that we would be doing a conference like this on a web call. Yeah, we always thought we would get together, and do a conference. But today these are more effective, and people from all over across India don't have to travel for this. They're all hooked on by a single login. It's as simple as that. But that being said, I think look at the digital skill professionals that are there in the country. Yeah, who are really proficient in this area. And I think the important point to note that only 12% of the India workforce is really can be considered as digitally skilled professionals. So which is a significant dent from where we actually want to be. And this is really causing an acute shortage really in the talent to fill the roles for digital proficiency. And I think the other most important thing, with today, as I spoke about, with virtual operations being there, companies looking at flexible models, and so on and so forth. With the process of digitization now getting more mature, I think the important thing is that computer literacy, digital skills, cyber security, and so on. So this, I think, will go a long way. And so therefore, for an organization to actually change from where they currently are at the level at which they're currently performing, the most important thing is to look at things like agility and planning and critical thinking and risk mitigation. Yeah, these are areas that are very important for a longer haul. So if I were to summarize this in very quick terms, what we have tried to do at WorldBank, we're a fairly new company, and we've taken a number of trainees over the last years, but we've seen these gaps as well. And these are real life examples that I'm witnessing on a day-to-day basis. So what we've done is we've actually put a 2-year intervention for these trainees, wherein the first year, post the induction and the onboarding and the campus to corporate, and we have to put them on a technical training. Then they're on the job and they do shadow working and stuff like that. And then after 1 year, we have a conclave. What does this do? It really assesses the learning, the aspirations of them going forward. And in the second year, we have actually introduced a 40-hour learning intervention, okay, which is spread throughout the course of the year, built in a classroom and a through a classroom, virtual, and also through role play model. Yeah, which is infused in their projects and in their presentations also. And this really focuses on softer skills, the aspect of softer skills, which actually finally culminates into an online, an end-term evaluation and a certification at the end of the year. So this is a small, I would say, a small pathway, Rishi, to actually, build better proficiency and bridge that gap that really exists. And what has been our attempt to do this? We want to expand, professional competency. We want to ensure that we are able to develop skills, knowledge, behavior, and so on and so forth. And we're also enabling them to have a better lifestyle, and build their personality on a larger basis. So I think this has been our larger attempt, and I think if you ask me, we are all, to summarize, I think we are all experiencing these changes at an ever-increasing pace, and this pace has got accelerated only very recently. But I think skills are required to succeed today, not only as it's required for tomorrow. And today we are the problem the country today is facing, not only lack of skills, but actually increasing presence of mismatched skills. So I'll just repeat, the increasing presence of mismatched skill sets. I think that is very important. And to my mind, therefore, upskilling, reskilling, multi-skilling employees is the only way to a sustainable competitive advantage. Yeah, and I repeat, reskilling and multi-skilling, the only way to build sustainable competitive advantage. So that's the way. That's what I would like to really summarize in terms of what we have done and what we will continue to do to bridge this gap between industry, between academia, and to get a workforce that's more ready going forward for all of us.
Yeah, very nicely deliberated by Colin. Just few things from my perspective. It's absolutely what Colin has said is impacting the corporates and the skill gaps, the way things are being done. But see one thing, currently in our country, the way the engineering colleges are increasing, as a business entity. So from there also, this problem of skill gap is coming up. Now, even in the rural places, if you go, you'll find engineering colleges, and the number of faculty is less. Sometimes students are passing out; they are being asked to be the faculty. So these kind of challenges, what actually bringing on board the students are not being developed that way. That is one. Number two, what Colin said, absolutely, that industry academia collaboration is very, very important, but that has to be through a strategy, that has to be through a policy. Means one student has to be engaged with a corporates that matter, just like they do a summer programs or internship program for 2 months. So that has to be again defined, relook how much actually necessary. 2 months is enough for them to be employed somewhere else, or it has to be more. I sometimes believe that this thing has to be again think very deeply and need to revamp. They need to be engaged more with the, if they are engineers, more with the plants. If they are computers or BSc BTechs, they need to be in that perspective. Otherwise what happens, what they're learning hundreds of things, they are practicing maybe 10% of things. So as a result, this unemployment, or even I rather say not employment, it is underemployment is more. So that area need to be again cover up. So one, what I'm saying is, there must have strong policy. They need to build strong policy and strategy to develop this student as per the requirement of the corporates, or that they should also become confident. And when they approach a company, when they're part of a company, they should know what is to be done, what role to be play. Even I sometimes go to a lot of colleges to give a talk to student developments. I personally find that maybe there are a lot of students who are very good, but they lack approaches, they lack visions where they are going, what next they need to be done, and how do they become more employment. So those areas, and they need clear guidelines, which sometimes the faculties, they are very bright, very excellent, they have a lot of interpretation on the subjects and very deep, but when in the practical from when I'm talking about a plant, so they may be one manager maintenance, or one manager you say, or a general manager ENI, they cannot able to speak that way. One faculty can deliver it, but if you go and talk to him, he will talk about the practicability, how things are happening, what are the issues, what are the challenges, what to refer when there is a crisis. So that skill set has to be built by the students when they are learning in the college, when they are a part of the college, which through academic and industry, that engagement has to be a very effective. Otherwise that skill gap will not be reduced. That is my take, what Colin has said, and I totally agree with him.
Right. And Colin, I think the concept of faculty internship is really interesting. It's really, I think internship has to be taken also seriously by everybody, because this is one topic, skill gap, I think we've been hearing and discussing over the last 2 decades, but the gap seems to be increasing rather than reducing. So high time that we take internship, whether anywhere, whether it's the corporates or it's the students themselves, they take it more seriously. And for sure, I think the concept of faculty internship is really innovative and nice.
Very
Thank you.
interesting.
I personally believe, besides internship, I mean, exchange programs, there are a number of things that one can do to ensure that there is a closer align to what industry needs. And Industry 4.0 is moving at a very quick pace. Yeah, and I so echo to what Shribesh was just mentioning, because we both represent the manufacturing industry. So the kind of gaps that I'm sure he and we have been seeing have been a lot that's to be dealt with over a period of time.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. So one thing which caught my attention was the skill mismatch. So it is like maybe it is still a good number to have 48.7 employed people, because it is not about the others being unemployable. It is just that they have skills which are not matching with the skills which are needed. So maybe it's an easier solution to just match the skill gap, the mismatch to be reduced, so that people are able to work on the job. And the second thing which the ecosystem says, and all of you have endorsed that as well, see, a student basically does what he or she is guided to do. Now, if there is somebody who's an intrinsic motivation to say that, hey, as a student, this is what I would like to develop, and they tell the college that this is their area of interest, I've seen no college which tells a student that no, we will not facilitate it. So there are students who are intrinsically motivated. They'll probably pick up an area of interest and they will go back to the college and say that, hey, if you are looking at internships, maybe this is an area of interest which we have. Can an internship be arranged in this ecosystem? And colleges have been very, very friendly to take that approach as well. But there are very probably few intrinsically motivated individuals, and that number needs to increase. But there was a thought-provoking answer somebody gave me in a one-on-one conversation one day, that industry never speaks to school students. So it is like, embedded by default that skill development only starts when the child is in college. But when you look at somebody deciding to take STEM or humanities or liberal arts or whatever, the transition actually is happening in the 10th, 11th grade. So there is an ecosystem which is actually requesting the industry that talk to the student only for an hour, but talk to the student in the school ecosystem as well. So that I'm a live example of an engineer who, after engineering, realized that my paths were somewhere else. So might as well, if there's some amount of corporate coaching which goes into the schooling ecosystem, because I know certain schools even in Pune, they provide internships in 11th and 12th. They don't wait for internships to happen in the college life, and those students are at least more aware on what will happen, what they do it. So it's just about request which might come to the industry fast, that to reduce the skill gap, maybe the reduction in skill gap interventions have to start at school level as much as we are looking at bridging it at the college level. So at least the world is thinking about it. So Colin, Shribesh, Upasna, thank you very much for this very interesting,
Yeah,
and I think it's
Rishi, just two things I would add on with what you said. It's a
yeah.
very important that the guys who are coming out from schools, the students, they need to also understand the internship is not only for college people. Even their parents need to understand that to get them engaged in the corporates and future goals, whether they become a faculty or IS officers or anything in ministers. But if they are systematically engaged through an internship program, maybe in a Pizza Hut, also no, that also help them out to explore a lot of new opportunities, how organization work, a lot of things they learn, and that develop and shape their character and personality both. So that is very important for a perspective of nations also. Second thing is that when I talk about engineers, now one more concept I bring into, when I go to colleges, I tell them, all students, see, this is your career, your life, so you need to understand few things. And one of the most important thing I tell them, where from the first year itself you start modeling means you first know what you will become. Suppose you are a mechanical engineer and you want to become a general manager maintenance or a general manager mechanical, or you want to become anything, like James Civil. So you catch up few people like that who are there in the industry, try to locate them in your society anywhere, and try to have some passive discussion with them and try to copy them. In case you do not able to, this modeling partner that help them to reach to that goal. So that is also one way out to remove their underemployment or unemployment part, because they come to know a lot of things from that successful people, so they're in the same lines.
You're absolutely right. In fact, there are industry professionals who tell us in this domain that almost 50% weightage to longevity of careers rests on communication skills. But people do not put that much effort in actually developing them. So I think again, I mean, this question, maybe we'll talk about 6 months. The same question will remain with different answers, but
Yeah.
we really have a long way to go. So that is something which I believe so all the 142 participants, even if they go and motivate 5 students at least to be more closer to what's happening in the industry. At least we have 600 students pioneering to another 600 students. I mean, this will be a multi-level marketing which nobody will mind, where you're actually helping facilitate careers. So thank you. I mean, we've spoken around for 25 minutes, very, very important conversation. So Shribesh, let me come to you on something which many a times treads on a very, very gray zone. And people give these anecdotes to say that I was getting the best ways to enhance my career when I resigned in a company. So what was happening? Why was it not offered when I was, say, within the organization? So here is the question. So there's again a statistic which is quoted by LinkedIn that 94% of employees, they say that they would stay longer in a company if they understood that the policies were very clear about how the organization is going to invest in sustaining and enhancing their work outcomes and increasing their career longevity in an organization. So when people talk about individual development plans, and many people believe they just happen closer to the appraisals, how does this process, what is the ideal process in your opinion, where in today's economy, the policies which are set by corporates can be so transparent and so well entrained with the people working in the company that it is able to give that confidence to people that it is not just about the transaction of their career today, they can actually have a long-term career in the organization. So what roles can policies play in terms of the clarity they should give to an employee?
Yeah, it's a very important question, particularly at these junctures when we are all talking about great resignations and other things. And it is also true, as soon as a person resigns in the corporates, we immediately start negotiating with him. What is happening? What offer you have? So there's a very generic problems we all are facing. But yes, with a perspective which you have spoken, it's very important. The policies so far, even the HR is also continuously, from just we are talking with Upasana 80s to 2000, 2000 to 2010 and 2020, it is also continuously changing. HR people are also becoming more business friendly. They are also connecting with the business, and with that perspective, all policies, it has to be pro people. Otherwise, at this juncture, it will be very difficult to retain people, and it has to be highly transparent and linked with business. Now, see, the aspiration of people to be understood, it cannot be one day you will understand. So with the clear you have to open up communication channels, so you maybe just like we're celebrating or doing a lot of employee engagement programs, so you need to have forums where you try to catch people, you get their opinions. You need to have programs where you will understand, or vigilance where you understand who are the people who are not happy, or who are the peoples who are looking forward to change, or people who are very skilled people and they're not paid well in the company. So those kind of mechanism has to be developed by HR. Who are the, suppose a person who is getting 20 lakh salary but his market value is 50 lakhs, right? So the one thing, and then you cannot retain him in case you do not have, his skill is so demanded in the market, he can generate that much of value. So you need to, those kind of tracking you need to have. Second thing, you need to also understand where your current policies are in terms of the market. So you need to do continuous benchmarking with your practices with organizations where you have more retention and less attrition. For example, promoting policies like work from home, promoting policies for women. Even, just adding to that, there's a report I was going through in a Digital India book where it says one of the problems in India is the women's which were educated till college, after marriage they handle their home only. So it means that kind of investment they had for their education till college, after marriage a big chunk of women, maybe 30-40% women, they are not utilizing that skill for the development of the country, even development of their own career. So this current scenario where online things are available, so they can be trained, they can be groomed, they can also be a part of the larger organization and can contribute to the growth of the organization by doing some work. So those areas like where sometimes people resign because their personal issues. So whether that sustainability, talking to them, whether we can engage them, whether we can be a part of the company in any sense, or someone is resigned and they want to come back due to some reason. So you have to be very open, and it has to be linked with your business perspective. If you have a rigid mindset at this juncture, at this disruptive juncture, then you will not be able to survive. You need to create your goal very clearly, organizational goal, and you have to map that goal with the individual in the organizations, with the leaders with the organizations, and then only you will be able to create avenues. Suppose, as I said, for the IT industry, the way people are resigning, so you need to, by means of any agreements or non-disclosure agreements, it is definitely not possible to stop that, because I have my experience and I have my opportunity. Mera time aa gaya. Look, we say like that, ki apna time aayega. When that has come, how can you stop by means of a documentation? So that requires strategic engagement with them. You need to share ESOPs, you need to share profits that way. Sometimes I find many organizations, they're earning good amount of money, but when they are going for increment, they stick to 10%, 12%. So I mean, they are not sharing their profits. They don't have that mindset. So earning more and sharing less to the employees who are creating business. So gone are those days. If your organization has that much of value and is created by the employees, try to share with them. In a way, they own the organization. They feel that one small offer or a suddenly offer coming to you, it will not make them think about the offer, because they own the organization. They feel that this is their own organization, and their engagement with the organization, process, system, and management is so deep that nothing will make them immediately think. Even I see in many in my companies also, if any offer come to them from the outside, they'll not go, because they're bonded in that way. They also come and discuss, see sir, I've got an offer, but I cannot resign. Why you cannot resign? They said it is very difficult to resign, because what I'll talk to my boss, every time he help me, every time he, whatever difficulties I face in my life, in my career, in my family front, I need money, loan advances company has given me. So see, so that's, he has an offer in hand which is double than his salary, but he has no courage to resign, because he said that, okay, this is the safest zone, this is my organization. So these are all intangible things. To making that tangible, in terms of policy, in terms of live examples, then only you can create a sustainable organizations. And it is a matter of culture. So how you build the culture, how you can sell this to your employees, and how they take it. Otherwise, these things comes from inside. If you do not able to build that momentum in them, it will be very difficult, to at these junctures, people will not feel that they can go to the next station where they'll get better. So time has come, and we need to have policies which are linked with business, which are linked with the human emotions, human values, and it cannot be imposed upon. It has to be mutually understood. Yes, and you need to be, as I said, very very open, transparent, and flexible in all your policies. You are rigid, it will be very difficult. Yes, there are challenges, like when you are work from home, you don't have tools, so you need to have strong tools, collaborative tools, where you can measure their performance. Even in work from homes, you can engage them. You need to have continuous talk, communication. So communications has to be very, it is playing a big role, and it will play a big role. And how you are strategizing your communication with your employees, that will make their mind stick to the company. Nowadays we talk a lot about communications, open forum, and discussion, but in reality it does not happen. Even I see in many a time in my company, we are communicating a lot, but we're not communicating what is to be communicated to them. We're not making them feel valued. We're not making them feel that yes, if you achieve this, this will be yours, and stick to that. So I think time has come to really think about the employees. In a way, they become not only, they feel like owners of the company. Otherwise, it is very difficult. Whatever you do, it will be very challenging for the organization in days to come to survive with that rigid mindset. They need to be very flexible, open, and transparent, and they need to accept what it is right now happening. So this is what I, in short, my submissions.
Yeah. So Rishi, if I could add, sorry. Yeah, Upasana, please go ahead.
Yeah, please, Colin. Yeah.
Okay, so Rishi, if I could just add a little bit, and I was intensely listening to what Shribesh was saying, and I so much emulate with what he says. But I think the most important thing, I want to leave behind is, what really motivates longevity. Yeah, what motivates an employee to advocate about the company. Okay, what motivates loyalty. And is it really about policy? I think it's far much more larger than that. While I know today's conversation is really focused on the policy aspect, and how that can be linked to investments to the employee. I think the most important thing is that there is a bigger angle to an employee wanting to stay with the company. It is the organization, the brand, the work they do, the opportunity to develop, and really that the entire employee value proposition, if I put it that way. Yeah. And then the second most important thing is, in today's context, and I'm going to restrict my conversation, from the policy perspective, because our discussion is focused on that. But in today's context, we need to look at policies that are not one size fit all approach. Yeah, and the reason why I'm saying that is because today, look at the formats of employment. They have usually changed from what it was before. Yeah, we have situations where you have hybrid workforce, you have people who are working in factories, you have people who are working in the field, you have people who are working on part-time, full-time, on an hour basis. So you would have to really customize something if you want to retain people. You might have people who are working with you, for just a particular piece rate on a piece rate basis. So there could be multiple ways of doing. And finally, they are all stakeholders in the game to deliver more value to the customer. And finally, as an organization, what is our goal point? To deliver more value to the customer and to ensure that the business is more sustainable. Yeah. And so therefore, whatever policy we devise, a policy that will be more sustainable, to ensure that you have the set of people that are able to take your organization to the next level. So, does it need to be pro people? I think it has to be, not only pro people as Shubhe said, but I think it has to be right for the organization. Because it's one part of it is looking at what people want and what the organization can also afford. Yeah, and I think a fine balance between both is very, very important to ensure that your policy is able to stay afloat. People must see long-term value proposition in what this organization is. And the other day I was talking to a friend of mine. We all have moved to a CTC concept. So people, when they switch jobs, they say, "Hey, what's this? What CTC you're getting?" But today we've forgotten about a bunch of benefits that large organizations gave before. I'm talking about perquisites. People stuck onto organizations because they got a lot of perquisites that were attributed to the job role that they performed and they did. And these perquisites were not only enjoyed by themselves, it was enjoyed by the entire family. So there are a lot of things that have changed and have actually made employees switch jobs more easy, because they can unplug from A and plug in into B very easy, because it's a CTC concept. So our policies need to be well thought through. And the point that I want to make, in the interest of time, our policies need to be well thought through as what exactly are we looking for to do that will ensure longevity, loyalty, and advocacy to the organization, and then put together that something that will be of the need of the hour, and something that will take the organization to the next level.
Absolutely. And one thing just I will add, what Colin has said, yes, that is very important. I also believe how you are engaging the families with the organizations. What happens when you work with the organizations and your family is not engaged, no? So their emotional connect will be less. For example, in my companies, we have a lot of engagements where families are engaged. Like we have cricket tournaments where in the final the families are invited, be seated and have lunch and dinner, watch the games. So that way, there are organizations, they have reward and recognition systems where they engage the families. There's a program called Sabas, where if you become the star performer of the month, so you and your family get a ticket for a movie and lunch in Taj Bengal. So what happens? That creates your family. Yes, you are in the right organization. So these are the small initiatives where you can, not only the employee, you're engaging with the families, and that create the emotional connect. Even your sons, your kids, how they connect with the company, not directly but indirectly, and that company give them a personality, give them a name. You're from that family, that organization. That also is very important and creates the sustainability factors. You start from that perspective also. Yeah,
Wonderful. Well,
please.
yeah.
Yeah. So Colin, I completely agree that it cannot be one size fits all. In our organization at GI Group, what we love to say is that we would want to treat you as adults. You have to take care of your learning and development. You decide how much and how far can you go on your growth. If you're entering the organization thinking is that okay, I have to spend 2 years and then next I'll move to some other organization. Whatever the organization does, it will not sink in through people. So we need to put people at the center, and we need to put the onus on them, because I may give tools. We have beautiful training platform. We have what we call My Career Journey, which tells you how you can grow horizontally or vertically within the organization. But that's not enough, unless we are communicating, and unless the employer, the person himself or herself, takes the onus of being resilient and trying to grow. I think none of the policies would work. So it's active communication also, between all the concerned stakeholders, which is very, very important on this topic.
Nice. I'd like to know a little bit about my career journey offline, maybe from you later on.
Thank you.
So I have, my little anecdote. I've been witness to a job in my career where my appraisal, not my appraisals, my achievement letters were delivered to my mother. So, one day I come home and it was path-breaking, and I'm talking about 96, 97. Somebody had that vision at that time that a human being is a family. He's not an individual who leaves the parents behind and children behind and comes to work and gets grilled and go back. The good part is that when I when I was not achieving enough, those letters were not going to my mother. Only the to go. But I was amazed. So the emotional challenge I had to dissociate myself from that organization was extremely big. But the incentives were different, and at young age you have different matrices. But as Shribesh mentioned, and we all acknowledge that you appreciate the employee as a family, not to say that you are an individual in a family somewhere else. I knew a consulting firm where they realized that almost say 7 to 8% of employees in a particular time in a year used to take leave, and it was not their annual vacation. And they realized that these 7 to 8% people were actually hunting for education counselors to send their children overseas. So what this company said is that you continue your work, don't get into that anxiety. The counselors will sit for 2 months a year inside the office campus. So what happened for the employees was not that the company just wanted them to work. They said, we'll filter the right counselors. Right now you're going to 20 counselors and you're trying to find out who's the best counselor for your child. We'll filter the higher education counselor and they will have a seat inside. We will subsidize the cost of that counseling, but we appreciate you are a family. So, there are these things, as Shribesh and you all mentioned, it took me back in life. So empathy, transparency, business linkages to HR practices, proactiveness, maybe evaluating flight risk individuals or why they are flight risks and what can be done in advance, treating the employee as a family. And I've seen some letters which now don't say CTC, they say COBs, the cost of benefits. You put it adequately. So they don't say your CTC is 20 lakhs. They say cost COB is 20 lakhs and it gets justified. And universities, by the way, write CTU, cost to university. They don't write cost to company because they treat universities as a different entity. So very exciting conversation, and thank you very much for all this. And Upasana, what I'm going to discuss with you is something which has happened a couple of times in my own life. So I did not know there is a word called as boomerangs, and boomerangs are returning employees. So if I leave a job in a company and after a few years if I go to the same company, people call them boomerangs. So when I was teaching this subject of HR last term, I was researching for what's happening new, and I realized boomerang is a word. So that's the learning. So Pasna, we've spoken about faculty internship, we've spoken about students internship, but I know you've been driving a program called returnship in your organization. And returnship, while addresses maybe people who've taken a career break. So sabbaticals, are voluntary as well as involuntary. So people take voluntary sabbaticals. I know people who say, I was burnt out, I'm just taking it easy for 6 months just to reinitiate my life. or probably for upskilling and reskilling, and that's a sabbatical thing, voluntary or involuntary. And the other is boomerangs. I know companies who say if you've gone out, you are not welcomed ever again. There are companies who say you are a talent, you went out, we can evaluate you back. Others say, I don't care, you are also an applicant, and others are also an applicant. So the world is divided on how to treat people from a break and how to treat people who are trying to return to the same employee. Like I returned to Ericsson thrice in different ways and measures. So with the returnship program in focus, if you can take us through what should really happen in the longevity of careers of people on sabbaticals and people who are boomerangs, I think we'll have a very, very interesting insight from all of you on that.
Right. First of all, thanks Rishi for helping us drive this concept of sustainable work. And this is our fourth webinar in this, and we'll do more. And a lot of thanks to the esteemed panelists and our audience to also being a part of this, because the concept is very, very close to us. And I really feel privileged to be a part of this discussion today. So I'll answer the question in two aspects. Let me talk about the returnship program and where it came from. Mostly, I think most of us have been into hiring either as hiring managers or HR. We've looked at resumes. And when we look at resume, I'm sorry to say, but I think most of the time we are looking at it like a maths assignment. So if a person has completed the PG in, let's say, year 2020, you mentally calculate that the person should have 22 years of experience. And then you start looking at, okay, how many years or months has the person spent in each organization, and is there a career break or not? I think that's the first thing that we are, let's say, conditioned to look at when we look at a resume. Is there a career break? And that becomes one of our starting questions in the interview. Oh, so you have a break in your career, or you had a break. Do you think you'll be able to manage the pressure here? And the most classic one, which I think most of the women face if they are joining workforce after having break, after they've had children, is that now who will look after your children now that you're coming back to the corporate world? So I think while every time we ask this question, I doubt the candidates answer it honestly, because they fear they'll be judged. So the most common answer that we hear is medical reason, and the latest one is COVID, of course. Because of COVID, I had to take a voluntary or involuntary break, as you said, Rishi. So I think my take on this is, why should a person justify a break? We are humans. Break could be because of different reasons. It could, and I think it's to the person why the person took the break. It could be because I may want to upskill myself. I may want to spend more with my family or children. At times, it could be just that the person is burned out and you just need that break. At times, I mean, we were in the past engaged with this on CSR initiative, engaged with this with the school. The school runs. It's a school for underprivileged children, and as a part of their volunteering initiative, they allow teachers to come and teach on voluntary basis for 3 or 4 months. Now, if somebody wants to do something like that, the first question that comes to my mind or anybody's mind, that okay, how can I take 3 months of break to get an associated with something which is good for your society, and maybe personally it's the cause is very close to your heart, because 3 months break may be too much, and otherwise also every time you're taking a sabbatical, whatever is the reason, next job that you go to, you'll be questioned. Even staying with the organization taking sabbatical is not really easy. So I think my take is, we really need to look at candidate as a whole. Just because the person has break in the career does not make the person any less of a candidate. I mean, people have maternity breaks, that's by the government. People join back after 6 months. It's not that they forgot what they were doing 6 months back. I used to teach psychology 20 years back in my career. Now today, if somebody tells me to teach, maybe I'll need to brush up, but I can still do it, provided the employer has the confidence of hiring a candidate like this. So I think as hiring managers, as HR, we need to look at candidates more as a whole, rather than just looking at that particular break that the organization had. And with that, we really launched this program which we call the returnship program, is wherein we are inviting people to come and join back our organization if they had a career break for whatever reason. Mostly, most of the applications that we've got, it's from women, who had a career break after, marriage or children. But there are other candidates also, who had to take voluntary or involuntary break, and we are trying to give them a fair chance. I can tell you it's not easy because it needs a mindset change. Because it's the hiring managers also who have to be, because when you are hiring somebody after a sabbatical, you have to be prepared that after that break you may need to invest some time rebrushing the skills, training the person. So that mindset has to change, not just from people who are hiring, also people should have confidence of coming back and doing whatever they want to. It's not easy, but it's not impossible. We've seen some good success around it also, and some of these people are really top performers in the organization. So I think we would spread more word around this plan, and we hope to hire more and more people around the returnship plan. You can, of course, we can often have discussion on how do we drive this. Apart from this, coming to your second question, Rishi, on boomerang. Even I learned this word when you brought it up. While keep using the word, okay, should you rehire or not? And at times we also run campaigns. You're right. Some organizations they are very clear that if you leave, we don't hire you. And other organizations, they are very, very open. In my opinion, neither you can have like a revolving door that you go and you come anytime that you want to, because it may not be great for the culture practically. Nor you can have iron gates that okay, once you're out, you cannot come in. We'll not let you come in. We need to take it case to case basis. Of course, there are times in our organization we are very, very open to rehiring a person, and we have also run campaigns to in fact rehire people. And there are times we also refuse, because maybe we feel the impact on the existing culture or people may not be very positive. So it's sensitive, because if people who've stuck around with you, they have not grown, and you are trying to rehire somebody, giving a higher elevated position, which may create a little bit of problem within the organization. So it should be taken case to case basis. We can't have a very rigid approach or a extreme approach on this aspect. The also benefit of rehiring is, one, the person knows your culture, is familiar with how your organization works, and gets added experience, and they are the people who can probably give you best feedback on your processes and cultures. So it has its pros and cons, and of course we should probably take it case to case basis. That's how I look at this issue of boomer.
Any opinion?
Right.
If I can just add a little bit to what Upasana just said, that I was keenly listening to the program on returnship, and I think that's very important, because I was just thinking, how many of us really appreciate what is right and what's wrong? And we always keep at looking and finding faults, that okay, this person took a break, is there a doubt about this person asked to go, things like that. And I think the important factor, and I completely echo with what you said, the important thing is, we need to look at the individual. Is what am I looking for? And does this individual really meet the skill set that I'm looking for? Does this individual fit into the equilibrium of the organization or the culture of the organization? Will this person be able to make a difference to the company? I mean, that's what we look for. Whether the person took a break and what is the reason for why the person took a break. I think the fact is that the person is beginning again. Yeah. And I think that is the biggest turning point, or the biggest positivity. If the person is beginning again, that means the person has made an attempt to do something right back again. And I think that's the important thing. So for an organization perspective, I purely see that, hey, this is an opportunity. This is a person. Does this person meet my requirement? And if it meets my requirement, if the person took a break for whatever reason, tried in his or her own business and probably didn't work out, or decided to take up an executive education program or upskill somewhere else, or or whatever reason, or company closed down, I think the fact remained that we shouldn't look at it with a different lens. We should just look at the person as an individual, and an individual who's coming back. So I'm very happy that we're looking at people from that perspective, and I'm very happy that you brought this to light. I mean, this point is very important, because a lot of us look at it with a little gray scale, whether this person is really right and fit for the job. The second part of it, in terms of the program that you have on boomerangs, I think that's very interesting, and I think that this is a program that we should really encourage people to come back. But there is also a disadvantage because, sometimes we look at the person from the same lens. I'm just giving a different perspective to what you said, Upasana. But the point is that, while the person has the right skill set, knows they've been there, done that, you keep looking at that individual from that old lens the person was 5 years back. Let's say the person is coming back after 5 years. You don't really regard that within 5 years, the person has grown significantly. And I think that's the important balance that organizations or managers need to keep when the person is coming back to make that person really successful in the job back again. So that's my only limited point.
Yeah, so I'll add on a few things. One is one of my employee has resigned thrice, left and come back. So few days back he resigned again, and some people are asking, is a serious resignation or what? Right. So thing is, first of all, one is culture. So that is very important. What person you said, sometime HR and hiring manager, they need to think it in that way that we should not discriminate while hiring someone or rehiring cases. Sometimes it gets, immediately we do not allow that candidate. But I think that is a cultural issue. We need to create that culture in the organization, and which is to be driven by the top. So we need to have inclusive mindset, and sometimes HR people are quite helpless. They think that what management will think, and so if they get that kind of communications, yes, we are very open, transparent. If someone gone for maternity, had a break, want to come back, so that is absolutely okay. So till we create that kind of culture in the organization, so hiring manager remain confused, and they think that how that move will be taken up by the organization. So that culture has to be created. And second thing is, one thing you rightly said, when we rehire someone, the one problem we face that communication is going to the other employees. So they are getting X amount of salary. Now that employee coming back by 3x after 2 years. So there are some employees, they gossip. Yes, see what happens. Chhod ke chale gaya, and then again is 3 times salary. So that is a one practical scenario we see, and people are gossiping. So that is one challenge. So that we need to also understand. But yes, what Colin added, what skill he's bringing in after 3 years, maybe that 3 years he took a break, went to IIMs or went to somewhere else, and bought a very considerable skill in the organization, and he is creating difference. So that has to be again looked at on case to case basis. That has to be thought upon, and accordingly decision has to be decided, or decision has to be taken. But overall, I think in my personal take is that uh, we must not be so much of biased, for people who are going and are coming. Sometimes we need to think really they will create value for the organization or not. What values? Yes, there are people who are poor performer, they created something bad for the organization, so we cannot rehire them. It is okay. But in most of the cases, we need to we need to think about the organizational goals, sustainability factors, and how it will create value for the organization. If you decide in that perspective, it may be a better decision. But even I'll tell you one example. I was going through one CV, and I had a panel. So the panel said, see, this guy, he left one company, and after 6 months he rejoined there, and again he's coming for an interview. He must be a good guy. I said, how? What is the your thought process that he must be good guy? See, he got rehired in his last company. Means he left, again rehired. It means for them it is an indicator. But sometimes rehiring is also indicator that it is done for a company person who was very good in his last second time they were also rehired. So that is again, what I'm saying is that rehire is also a good thing, and let us be very open about it, and think in terms of the organizational value creations, and take decision which really definitely those decisions which are for employees who created pain for the organizations. Except those cases, we must be very open, in my opinion.
No, thank you for that. So I picked up two keywords, what all of you mentioned. That so it started with Upasana saying people try to hide that they've had a break, and we may want to convert it to the pride of taking a break. So that balance between hide and pride, I think the time has come for making this happen. That I should be proud of the fact that I was reskilling, upskilling, maternity leave, paternity leave, just, getting out of a burn and unburning myself. I mean, I think it takes courage to take a break and burn your savings and then try to. So, I mean, I'm sure that you all will set the right examples on ensuring that the returnship kind of programs are also more manifested and populated. So we have been more than an hour into our conversation, and just in the interest of respecting your time as well as the audience's time, three things we discussed today. One was about the skill gap might be a traditional, beaten down conversation, but the future of it still needs to be discussed too much, and that's what probably Colin led with the conversation. And Shribesh spoke about the fact that you have to now start thinking of people to people rather than document to people when it comes to HR. So it's not a paper which just goes to a person, it is a person who's communicating with a person, and use the human being as an inclusive part of a family rather than saying you are an individual and we don't care what happens beyond us and the organization. And what Upasana led as a conversation is to the fact that coming back to work actually is more courage than probably changing your job and work. And we must give that pride to people. And I think we don't write enough on our social medias to say we welcome, returning people or we welcome boomerang. And that is the reason there's a mindset in people to say a career break is a very universal. In fact, there are people who attempt entrepreneurship and come back to corporates, and they believe nobody will respect the time they spend in entrepreneurship. And I've had some very interesting conversations on that. So maybe I'm rushing this a bit. Apologies for that, but I need to be cognizant of all your time as well. So Colin, Shribesh, Upasana, thank you very much, along with the 120, 140 participants who patiently heard and listened about how do we enhance the career of individuals, how an organization policy and the ecosystem can lead to sustainable work practices. And I'm sure in due course of time, we'll get our opportunity to talk more and further about topics of interest. Everybody stay safe. Have a wonderful afternoon ahead. And thank you for letting me be a part of this illustrious conversation. Good day to you.
Thank you.
Rishi, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Upasana,
Upasana.
Shribesh, good to meet you too.
All right, we can conclude the conversation now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Goodbye.
It's fine.